Welcome to a special edition of the DFS JAGS PGA Golf Show, DraftKings Bets Picks 2020 Ryder Cup, which coincidentally is being played in 2021. As I do each and every week, I beg, plead, opine, please like and comment on the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. We got a bunch of NFL, PGA, fantasy, and Buffalo-centric content. So if you subscribe, like followers, fall into your feed, and then I can stop doing this each and every week. As always, I'm your host, Tony Altieri, and joining me on the line, Ryder Cup enthusiast, passionate for the American team this year, Dr. Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's going on, man?
Hey, man. Passionate for the American team every Ryder Cup, and it just ends in disappointment all the time.
I know. We talked about this like before the show, is that it's the same story every year. Like on paper, the Americans are so much better. It's the same narrative. More majors, better guys, and Europe just finds a way to get it done, at least 7 out of the last 9 years.
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. I think the one good thing about this upcoming Ryder Cup is that we have a fresh new batch of talent that's on the team this year. So hopefully they can turn the tides, and we don't have some of these old heads on the team like Phil and Tiger. And I mean, Tiger was great in his day, but like some of the older guys like Furyk, and we have a bunch of young guys. We definitely have the youth angle this year compared to Europe, but. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, on paper, USA is favored and all that stuff. But as we see every Ryder Cup, 7 out of the last 9, he said, just can't get the job done.
Yeah, so a lot to discuss, and we'll get into it in a second. But the one thing I would like to mention, we've been talking about it over and over again each and every week, is we have this giveaway that's coming. It's looming out there, right? And it's something big. Mike's promised that it's this major giveaway. And for those of you that are out there that are subscribing to the channel or guys that are commenting, we are taking note of that. So each one of those times, every time that you comment on a video, whether it's mine, it's Mike's, it's Rick and Chris, it doesn't matter. We're taking that into consideration, and we will be doing a massive drawing for a big giveaway. So again, stay tuned for announcements to that. Done. No more. Not talking about it anymore. Let's get into this week. Well, let's do this real quick. Let's recap last week.
Yeah, Tony hit another winner.
Yeah. So I hit another winner in Homa. A lot of the guys out there had kind of the same cards. Like you and I, who hadn't really talked before we did the show last week, the guys that we were betting, there were a lot of similarities in the cards. Mito, I think everybody was on Mito last week, and he came this close to pulling it off last week. He played fantastic, but Homa just had a different gear late, especially the back 9 on Sunday, where he just pulled away from the field.
Yeah, I was super heavy on Mito last week. I was really hoping that he won. I had a really good week on DraftKings last week. I think I had 3x my money. I had Mito like everywhere in all my main lineups. So he definitely panned out for me. I had some Matt McNeely too last week. He kind of choked down the end, but I didn't have much Max Homa on DraftKings last week. I didn't have him as an outright. I don't know. He wasn't really on my radar. I just wish I kind of tailed you on that pick. But I just kind of making a mental note that whenever we play in California, just bet Max Homa or play him on DraftKings, and he might pan out. For some reason, he loves the West Coast, but he played really well down the stretch. That hole out on 12 was amazing. After that, he just pretty much birdied in and won the tournament. And then, even after he birdied 17, McNeely still had a chance because all he needed to do was birdie one of the last 2 holes to tie him, and then he goes out and hits this ridiculously bad tee shot on 17. I don't know what the hell that was. He pushes it straight out and hits a tree like 100 yards in front of him, and next thing you know, he double bogeys a hole and the tournament's maxes.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was kind of watching the live stats all weekend trying to see, like, okay, who could I catch live? And Mav was really the guy that I caught after round 1. His ball striking was immaculate. The putting was decent, but tee to green, he was phenomenal. So I added him post round 1 at 28-1. And then I jumped back in on Homa again at 25-1 because he just looked, again, ball striking, tee to green, approach off the tee was just fire. The guy just couldn't hit a putt, and that flipped on Sunday. And that really was the difference. So for me, like going into it, usually I have this sweat where it's like, I've got 1 or 2 guys close to the top, but there's always 1 or 2 guys who have a chance to potentially eclipse. And it was the first time in a while that I've had basically 4 of the top 5 guys going into the last 6, 7 holes. Like I had money on every one of them. So it was just a question really of who was I going to win money on? Was it going to be McNeely? Was it going to be Homo? Was it going to be Mito? So it ended up being a pretty like sweat-free Sunday.
Yeah.
But the guy I had the most money on ended up winning. So, hey, 1 for 1 in the new season. So, hey, that's all I can ask for. It gives me plenty of money to mess around with this week, which is fantastic because like you and I talked about, there's a ton of really fun prop bets. There's a bunch of really cool ways that you can, get a little skin in this week's game. It's different than a normal week. And so the numbers, the percentages, the odds that we're getting are not like they typically are for golf betting, but there's still a lot of fun ways to bet. And we'll get into some of that, but I'm excited for this week. And like I said, got a little extra bankroll after the win at the Fortnite Championship.
Yeah. The other big story from last week, and it actually worked out really well for me, was the only guy I played above 10K last week was Will Zalatoris, and he played great.
Yep.
I full faded John Rahm, and that's the big story from last week, I think, was his miscut. I think it was just kind of I don't really know what it was. Like, it was just kind of like a throwaway tournament for him. I think he was just he had like stomach issues the night before. I think he got the shits or something like that from some food that he ate or something like that. And just didn't play well on Thursday and Friday. And I'm not really factoring that in when it comes to Ryder Cup this week. I think it's still John Rahm. He's still the best player in the world, no doubt. So the miscut, it happens. Like, some players play out there. I think it was more along the lines of like his wife probably wanted to go to Napa and have a good weekend and stuff like that with the family. So he just decided to tee it up and just didn't play well Thursday, Friday, and missed the cut.
Yeah, I mean, it reaffirms kind of like you and I's philosophy that guys that are kind of at the super extreme odds, super low guys that are above 10K, it's really hard for those guys to return the kind of value for money that you have to allocate to adding them to a lineup or on a betting card. It's very, very rare. And golf, especially in the swing season, is so variant that there's a lot of value down the board on the betting cards, and you can find some guys at much lower DraftKings prices because anybody can win in these tournaments because they are easier courses with wide open fields. You don't have to bet a guy who's 5 or 6 to 1. You can take a guy who's 50, 60, 70 to 1. And the reality is they have just as much chance as the guy at the top of the board to win the tournament.
Yeah, just look at the top of the board. It was all pretty much that range right there, 50 to 60 to 1. And then, I mean, I even had a sweat with Bill Hostler at, I think I had him at like 200 to 1 or 300 to 1, and he was right in it like Saturday and Sunday too. So, yeah, I mean, during the swing season, I mean, rarely do you see faves like win tournaments. I mean, the only one that I could be potentially thinking about coming up would be like as Shriners, maybe playing like Patrick Cantlay or Kevin Na or something like that. But
yeah,
other than that, it's mainly like those mid-range to long shots that win the swing season events because the big names aren't really there, which is why I was really surprised that John Rahm even played last week, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, well, it's a valid point that you made on the show is when the courses are easy, it brings in a lot of guys that you typically wouldn't be betting on or adding to your card because so many different skill sets can win at a very easy course. When the course is tough, when it's long, when a course plays hard, that window of guys that can actually show up and win becomes much narrower. And so the odds affect, they reflect that narrative. But when, the course is hit and giggle and it's wide open or it's short, there's just so many ways to attack the course. There's so many ways to have success that you're just making a bad decision to spend all your money at the top of the board or take all the guys above 10K. It just doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's enough about last week. Since speaking of difficult courses, let's get into a difficult course this week.
Absolutely. So the 2020 Ryder Cup course is Whistling Straits. Anybody who's watched the PGA Tour over the last 5 to 10 years is going to remember this from PGA Championships. It's one of the longest, narrowest, most difficult courses that the PGA Tour plays on. The difference, I think, at least what's come out this week, is the rough. Typically, when we've seen this course, it's bearing all of its teeth. It is a links-style course, and so long fescue is really the course's major defense, and of course, wind. But because this course is being played, basically in the summertime, we're not going to have the types of weather we would typically have when we play some of the like the PGA Championship when that falls on the tour schedule. The other big difference is the rough. There's no rough. Many of the clips have been coming out on Twitter and on social media have basically shown that there's absolutely no rough on this course, or at least nothing that reflects what we typically see when this is played in a major championship. Like I said, it is super long. It's typically a par 72. It's being played as par 71 this week, but it's still going to be close to 7,400 yards. So of course you're going to need to be long off the tee. Off the tee stats are going to be extremely important. Guys who can find fairways or hit the crap out of the ball down there, a la Bryson, John Rahm. Put yourself within wedge distance, regardless of what the distance is for the hole. That's going to be key. And then guys who can hit long approaches, right? So we're talking about a long course, whether it's par fives or par fours. There's going to be shots that are going to be over 175 yards, and you're going to have a higher percentage of those shots at a course like that this week. So that all tells us that this sets up perfectly for an American team. And it makes sense because the Americans get to set the course up. Of course, they're going to want to make it as long as possible, and they're going to want to knock down the rough because they have some of the best drivers of the golf ball on this team. So is there anything else from the course, Rick, that you see? I mean, we kind of talked about it. Like, the U.S. has the advantage of setting up the course. They picked one of the longest, most difficult tracks you can play on, and it seems like they've got the team built to win on this course.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it right on the head. I mean, like we saw in the last Ryder Cup in France, obviously Europe gets to set up that course, and they build the rough up, and you don't get the advantage of the distance at we did in the last Ryder Cup, which I'm repping the 2018 Ryder Cup shirt that we sadly lost. But yeah, this course is beautiful. It kind of reminds me of Kiowa Island a little bit, just like a little linksy, right on the water. It's right on Lake Michigan, so it's going to be windy. It's going to be cold. That's what I'm hearing. It's going to be in the morning times. It's going to be like 40, 50 degrees. So it's a little scary to think of these conditions for Americans, because this is the type of conditions that Europeans usually thrive on. Cold, windy conditions. I mean, when you say something like that, I just think like Tommy Fleetwood's just going to go out and win 5 points. So I don't know if that's actually going to be the case or not, but but like you said, this course sets up beautifully for the Americans, just from a distance advantage. Every single guy on the team is pretty much a bomber. There's really not that many short per se hitters. I guess maybe like Spieth and English are maybe like the shortest hitters on the team, Berger maybe, but everyone is pretty much average to long off the tee, and especially we got the advantage with Bryson and DJ are huge bombers off the tee, and JT too. So the best thing about being able to not have long rough is that they can just blast it as far as they want, and you're not really that much in trouble unless you're like catch a bunker or maybe flail one out into the water or something like that. But on paper it looks beautiful for the Americans. That's why they're favored, I think, but who knows.
Yeah, it's difficult because I think one of the aspects that's come out over and over again, which is why so many people have kind of been wondering about the Americans, is this aspect of coming together as a team, and then all the little narratives that have gone along here with guys not liking certain guys. So we all know about the Brooks and Bryson drama. There's now apparently Brooks and Cantlay drama from their interaction from the long playoff that Cantlay beat Bryson at. So there's all these little narratives of people not getting along, the fact that, they didn't pick Reed because they wanted better chemistry in the locker room. So, a lot's kind of been played into that. The talent level is so much different, and we'll get into the specifics in terms of what separates the two teams here, but the talent level is so much better for the U.S. So before we get into the teams, let's talk a little bit about the format, because some people who may not be very familiar with Ryder Cup format or, haven't paid attention for 2 years like most of America, it really is a different style of match play format than most people are used to, right? Yeah. So they have what's called 4-ball, foursomes, and then singles. So on Friday and Saturday, they basically play 4 matches, the same formats. They play foursomes in the morning, where basically you have 2 guys versus 2 guys. Everybody plays their own ball. Lowest score wins the hole. So if it's Bryson and Brooks gets a birdie and Bryson gets a par, and the 2 European guys par, Brooks wins the hole.
I think foursomes is alternate shot, right? 4-ball is when they all play their own ball.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah. 4 balls. So 4 balls when they all play their own shot. Yeah. So
the way I remember it is 4-ball is there's 4 balls in play on every
That's
ball.
Exactly right. Yeah, and so foursomes are the alternate shot version. So for the four balls, that will be the afternoon matches, both Friday and Saturday. And so foursomes, the alternate shots will be in the morning. And then on Sunday, all 12 guys from each of the teams play a single match, 18 holes against one another. So you're picked up. So if I'm Team Europe and Rick's Team USA, we play one match against each other, 18 holes on Sunday. That's it. The important thing with all of that is you basically have 8 guys who end up playing the very first foursome match on Friday. Those 8 guys are the only guys who can play in all 5 sessions. So a guy can play in the morning and play foursomes, and then a guy can play in the afternoon and play four ball. It's typically the way that it's gone here the last few years is you have anywhere between 2 and 4 guys that end up playing in all 5 sessions, and then everybody else gets sprinkled within the other games. So it's very important from a DraftKings perspective, and then from a betting props perspective, that we wait to see who the guys are to play in that morning session on Friday morning. Now, if a guy comes out and he plays like dog crap, he could be pulled from the afternoon session. The guy substituted in trying to gain momentum one way or another. But that guy, the 4 guys for one team or the other who end up playing on Friday morning, are literally the only guys who can match, or I should say max out all 5 sessions. So those are your guys who are going to have the best opportunities to score. Those are the guys you should be targeting on DraftKings. Those are the guys you should be targeting for your prop bets. Yeah. So really important. Additionally, with that, DraftKings, because it is kind of a weird event, scores a little bit differently. So we've got 2 sets of scoring. Obviously, Ryder Cup has scoring where each one of those matches is worth 1 point. So over the course of 18 holes, if my team ends up winning that match, my Team USA, ends up getting 1 point. The first team to eclipse 14.5 points ends up winning the match in totality, or claiming the cup, right? 28 matches in total. Whoever gets to 14.5, 15, whatever you want to say, that's who ends up winning the match. The unique thing is, if there is a tie, if we end up in 14-14 all, then Europe retains the title for another 2 years. They don't, I think, get to hoist the cup, or maybe they do, but it doesn't transition to the Americans if Europe ends up tying the United States in the Ryder Cup this year. Cup stays with Europe until we have a match again in 2 years. Coincidentally, like I mentioned, DraftKings has unique scoring. So per hole scoring is still in existence. The only difference is it's based off of how you do. So whether it's team or you're playing singles, if you win a hole, you get 3 points. If you have a hole where Rick and I both play against each other, we end up with the same score. We both get 0.75. And then whoever loses the hole gets negative 0.75. So it's really similar to birdies, pars, and bogeys in terms of how scoring works for regular DraftKings. So that's why it's so important to get the guys who have an opportunity to play all 5 matches over the course of the week, because scoring opportunities are going to be few and far between. And each one of those scores, whether you're playing alternate ball or you're playing 4 ball or singles, you're going to get the full 3 points if you or your team wins a hole. All right. So a lot to take in there, but I know it's a little bit confusing, and that makes a big difference on how you're building teams, or like I said, making prop bets this week. Yeah. So when we get into the teams this week for the Ryder Cup, we talked about it. The big thing that the Americans have is they have the length and the power designed to succeed on this course. The unique thing that you mentioned, Rick, which is new really for what the Ryder Cup is and traditionally how it's built for the United States, is we have 6 rookies on the team this year. Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Daniel Berger, Harris English, Xander Schauffele, and Scotty Scheffler are all brand new to the Ryder Cup format. The guy who has the most experience is Dustin Johnson. He is the elder statesman of the team. And then you've got, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, who've played a couple renditions. But by and large, the U.S. has very little experience in the Ryder Cup format versus previous renditions. That can be a good or bad thing. Like we talked about, like there's been a huge hangover for the Americans over the years where they've just basically gotten their ass kicked by a team that's inferior, or at least appears to be on paper, because they can't come together and play as a team. So Stricker comes in, he wipes all of that away, goes with brand new guys. Thomas and Spieth are your captains. We've got a brand new look to the American team. And coincidentally, that means we have a ton of rookies this year. How do you feel about the inexperience, Rick?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about it. We're still talking about the probably the 12 best players in America. So it's not something that I'm too worried about, especially for someone like Xander and Patrick Cantlay, who have President's Cup experience from Australia last time. So not too worried about the inexperience. And then I'm a little worried that Dustin Johnson is the elder statesman a little bit. I mean, he is very soft spoken. He doesn't really talk much. So I don't think he's going to be that veteran voice in the locker room. I think that voice is going to belong to JT and Jordan. And I think the most important thing for USA is I hope somebody that's like a young guy, like I think it should be like Colin Morikawa, who is one of the top 5 best players in the world, like steps up and pumps his team up to to be like, okay, if you're not playing well, I'm going to carry you on my back, and whoever he's partnered up with and everything like that. So I'm not too worried about it. They obviously have more rookies than the European side. The European side, the only rookies they have are Victor Hovland, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Brendan Wiesberger as rookies this year. They are the more experienced team. The rest of their team have played in multiple Ryder Cups. Rahm, Rory, Fleetwood, Hatton, Casey, Westwood, Sergio, and Poulter, like Ryder Cup staples for the last 2 decades. So they definitely have the experience. They're obviously the best players in Europe, so a little worried about that. But I'm not too worried about the rookie experiences. These guys are going to show up to play on Friday for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a weird dichotomy between the two teams, because you've got the team in Europe where really this could be Westwood, Sergio, and Poulter's last run. I mean, Sergio may have enough where he could end up being again there in 2 years, just because the ball striking's still there, he's still playing very, very well. But Westwood and Poulter are definitely on the back sides of their career, and this may be their last run at it. Rory, who is, I think, by all accounts, the captain of this team, along with Ian Poulter. Rory has not played the best the last couple of years. He's definitely been lacking off the tee, which is his number one weapon, and he hasn't been playing like a guy who's a top 5 player in the world, even though he is. So I think the big question mark for Team Europe is, can all of the experience, being battle tested, all of that learning and experience from Ryder Cups past, is that going to be a benefit? Or is the fact that the U.S. team has basically no conscience, no memory, none of the sins of the father,
scar tissue.
Yeah, great term, scar tissue. None of the scar tissue from previous teams. This is a brand new regime that's come in. Are they just going to go out there and wipe the floor with Europe like they should on paper? So, I think that's really what many of us are hedging. And, like I said, it's not much different in terms of the talent dispersion between the two teams, because the U.S. has always been the superior team, or at least over the last 20 years in comparison to Europe. But Europe finds a way to get it done almost every single year. And even in the years where they aren't winning, they're making it extremely competitive.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think is the most important player on Europe and USA? Give me one player from each team.
Yeah, so it's interesting for me, for the European team, because I think it's pretty clear that Rahm, Rory, and Hovland are the top 3 guys on the squad. And then if you think about who's next in line, pretty much across the board, everybody says Paul Casey. Paul Casey's the guy that's got to show up and play well. And so to me, he's the linchpin guy, because he's the 3rd or 4th best player on that team. If he does not play like the 3rd or 4th best player, or if he goes out there and gets, smoked across the board against a guy like Brooks, or, or any one of the Americans, that could set the tone for the rest of the European team. So for Europe, it's Paul Casey. And then for me, for completely different reasons, the most important guy on Team US to me is Bryson. And it's because he has the most to gain and lose from this Ryder Cup. In my opinion, if Bryson goes out and he smashes drives, overpowers the course, it's going to feel like he's putting the team on his back, and he's going to get to ride that wave for a while. Much like we saw with Patrick Reed in previous Ryder Cups, where he earns the title Captain America, and everybody loves to see him do well at the Ryder Cup. Bryson could fill that role. The other side of that coin is if he goes out there and he crumbles under the pressure, and he's bitching and complaining about things and talking about how there's no chemistry and the teammates don't have his back, like, he could end up being the most hated guy in the history of Ryder Cup, golf for years and years to come. So I think he's got probably the most to lose or gain from this on the U.S. team.
Yeah, I definitely agree from the American side. I think the most important player this week is Bryson. I think this course is just. I think it suits him so well. I think he can just
Yeah.
blast it out there, and if he goes out there and plays Bryson DeChambeau golf, which we've seen him play, he won the U.S. Open like 8 months ago or 9 months ago. Um, I think he can carry it out, carry his team. I'm really interested to see who they partner him up with. I'm hearing rumors of Scotty Scheffler, maybe someone else. I'm not sure. I honestly think his best partner would be Colin Morikawa. I think they would be a really good team together. But I don't think that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think Colin really wants to play with him. I think they're gonna pair him up with one of the rookies like Scotty Scheffler or Harris English or something like that. But I think Bryson's gonna set this tone for the team Friday morning. He's definitely gonna be playing Friday morning. I'm pretty positive about that. So if he goes out there, carries a team, and gets a point on Friday morning, I can really see him playing all 5 sessions, especially if he's playing well and dominating at this course like I think he can be. I think Bryson is the most important player this week, and I think if he plays well, it could lead America to victory this week. And for me on the Europe side, I think the most important player for them is Rory. I think it's not just the fact that he's like one of their top tier players, just the fact that he's been playing bad all year. He hasn't really played well other than that 1 week in Quail Hollow. He's been pretty like shitty all year. So are we going to get the amazing Rory that we've seen over the course of his career, or are we going to get bad Rory this week? And I think if we get good Rory, he somehow turns it around this week and flips his irons and makes some putts this week. I think he is the linchpin to carrying his team on his shoulders. I don't think it's Rahm, because I think Rahm is going to come out. He's going to play all 5 sessions for sure, and I think Rahm's going to come out and play like Rahm does. But the next guy in line is Rory right after Rahm. And I think if Rory plays bad, that's going to set a really negative tone for the European team, and it could lead to their demise this week. So I think he's very, very important to their team this week. And if he plays well, I think European could retain the cup.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great segue too to talk about like the pros and cons for each one of these teams, because even though on paper the U.S. sets up so well for Whistling Straits, it doesn't mean there's not a path to victory for Europe, right? Europe still has a bunch of guys inside the top 50, the top 30, the top 20 in the world on their team. And if everybody plays to their ceilings, yes, the U.S. on paper should win, but that's not the case. The match play format, hitting alternate shot where you're hitting from other guys' positions. There's a bunch of dynamics that shift around and change the way that guys end up playing on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so those are important things to remember. So even though the U.S. looks like a juggernaut, almost unbeatable with a course that's perfectly set up for them, the European team can still find a way to win this thing. So when we're evaluating both teams, it's important to understand the U.S. has 8 of the top 10 players in the world. We talked about it over and over again. They're built for this course. That inexperience, while it is a bit of a negative, the youth factor also means, to steal your term, there's no scar tissue that they're having to deal with. So they've got a free conscience. They can go out there and win. They don't have to carry Ryder Cups of the past on their back. This is a brand new era of U.S. golf, and it's the ability for them to basically set the tone for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years of Ryder Cups. They can do that in this session. With all that being said, the big question mark for the U.S. team is just team chemistry. Can they bring it together? There's no question that individually they have the best components to win, but can they put it all together for 3 days? Can they play as a team? Can they do that? Can they get the magic back to be able to win this tournament? Because it's very, very clear, at least historically, that this tournament means a lot more to Team Europe than it does to Team USA.
Yeah.
Europe's won 7 of the last 9 tournaments. There's no question about team chemistry. If you look at all of the narratives, all the videos and things that they've put out on social media, it's about them being together as a team. It's not whether they can get there. It's the fact that they are absolutely a team that expects to win. And that's because of the muscle memory that this team has. Westwood, Garcia, Poulter, the American juggernauts do not scare these guys.
Yeah.
And so their ability to say, look, we've done this year in and year out when no one believes in us. this is just another Ryder Cup where we're going to walk away with the cup. With that being said, they're top heavy in talent. You mentioned it. The biggest question mark is inarguably their second best guy in Rory. Which guy shows up? And then, of course, the course fit. It is a link style course, and yes, there is wind, but this thing is long and fast, and they're going to cut down the rough. So it's going to take a lot of the teeth out of this course so you can just go and attack it. And that definitely gives the U.S. a big, big advantage this week.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like year in and year out during the Ryder Cup, USA is always a favorite, even if it's in European soil. For some reason, USA seems to always be like even a slight little favorite in Europe, just because on paper we have the juggernauts of Tiger and Phil and these names that have been a staple of Ryder Cup, Ryder Cups for forever. But I think that, like you said, like it just means more to Europe for some reason. Like whatever it is, maybe it's because like Tiger and Phil and them like didn't seem like they really cared about the Ryder Cup too much. They care more about their individual accolades. So I think that kind of spirit just kind of has diminished the team aspect for USA over the last like 2 decades, and that's why they haven't won that many. And then on top of that, like you said, the team chemistry in America is just bad. I mean, it would have been even worse if they added Patrick Reed to this team, but the fact that he's not on there is helping a little bit. It sounded like the other night Bryson and Brooks went to dinner together. Man, I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall to hear that. But they're like being chummy on the driving range this morning. Got some videos of that on Instagram. So it looks like they're, at least for this week, at least it looks like they're burying the hatchet and at least going to, cheer each other on and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm scared because the experience that Europe has over USA is very telling of how they could win this Ryder Cup. I mean, these guys have been there. Casey, Sergio, Rahm, Rory, and these guys have been in so many Ryder Cups in the past that they know what it needs to get done to beat the USA team. They know how to kind of get under their skin a little bit and stuff like that. And I think they're just, a much better team than America. Like they're a much better team. But hopefully this new regime in America, these youthful guys can, bind together as a team because, these guys have been playing together for a while. Like Cantlay and Morikawa and Zano, these guys have been playing like junior golf together for a long time. So like maybe like they can actually draw on those experiences of playing together and against each other in college and stuff like that they can actually, have the USA camaraderie and bring it together. I'm really interested to see who's that person that's going to speak up and bring this team together this year. Because I don't think it's going to be DJ. I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be JT or Jordan or somebody like that. But I want to see who that X factor voice is going to be. And I'm thinking it's going to be Morikawa. So.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Spieth and JT are really the guys. Like, if you're looking for somebody to be the trigger, the fire up guy, I mean, you look at JT. That's really been his role. Like when he was playing with Tiger, and even the years when, President's Cups, he's kind of that guy that's got a little swagger. He's not afraid to go bell to bell. He's got the game to back it up. And then Spieth, I mean, we've seen it even in just the way that he's played on the PGA Tour. He's not afraid to show emotion. He's not afraid to call people out. He's the kind of guy who will wear his comments. He's very well spoken. And I think those two guys make the most sense to be the verbal leaders from the team. But you've got a lot of soft-spoken guys. I mean, Finau and DJ, who are fantastic players, they're not emotional guys. And I think
even like Xander and Patrick Cantlay, they don't talk that much.
100%. But yeah. I think you don't need to be that kind of guy. And the perfect example to me is Cantlay when he won here at 3 or 4 weeks ago during the playoff run at the BMW, right? Like that was a super tight emotional situation where Bryson was wearing his emotions on his face, his mannerisms, the way he was talking. Like you could see just like the energy surging from him. And Cantlay was just stone cold the whole time, but still going shot for shot with Bryson during that whole thing. I mean, all the putts that he holed, he didn't need to fist pump or yell or scream. You could just see that every one of those was like a big middle finger back to Bryson. So those are the kind of things where you may not need to be vocal, but you need to be able to be big in those spots and show up. And I think that's what they're going to have to rely on because they don't have Patrick Reed this year to fist pump and give this to the crowd and do
Yeah.
this deal like Rory does. They just don't have those kind of guys.
You think Cantley and Xander are going to be paired up again together?
I mean, it makes the most sense, right? So that's the biggest speculation, is that for the Americans, the guys who are going to end up playing all 5 rounds are going to be JT, Spieth, Cantlay, and Xander Schauffele.
Yeah.
And then the other guy that people have been throwing into the mix, which makes total sense to me, is Tony Finau, just because of the way that he's played down the stretch and that he does have Ryder Cup experience. In Paris here 2 years ago, Tommy Fleet was an unstoppable force until he played Tony Finau, and Finau wiped the course with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of the things that's important to remember is Finau, for years before he was on the PGA Tour, he was a money game guy. So he was literally playing mini tours and money games multiple times a week to be able to fund his career. So when you're talking about money games, dude, that's match play. You're out there going shot for shot. Every hole counts. It's big money. So for him to be able to thrive in that kind of environment, you're going to have very similar dynamics to what you're going to have in the Ryder Cup. So I really like Finau a lot this week. I think the big thing for me with especially that first morning, right, the Friday morning, in my opinion, the U.S. has to go out and make a statement with that. They have to go out that very first match, go out there guns blazing, and try and just overpower Team Europe in those first 4 matches. So, the punch counter punch dynamic there is, how does Team Europe, maybe expecting that they're going to come out there with maybe something dynamic like Brooks and Bryson on, in the afternoon session, like, do you try and go bell to bell with that and throw Hovland and Rahm against those guys? Or you say, you know what, we're not going to buy into this. We know our dynamics. We know the way that things need to get played out. We're going to put a team that we think gels better regardless of who they're playing against.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick Cantlay and Xander together is fine, I guess. I mean, they're an okay team. They're pretty boring as a team together. I wouldn't mind seeing Xander play with somebody like Morikawa. I think they would be a good team together. I think it would be a mistake if, unless he's unhealthy. I think it would be a mistake if they didn't play Morikawa all 5 sessions. The guy's like the number 3 player in the world. Like, they got to play him in every session. I think that's pretty key. Even though he's not been playing the greatest recently, I think if he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the world. You got to throw him out there and let him get his feet wet in this format and carry your team. So, like you said, I'm hearing rumors about Rahm and Hovland being a team together. I'm hearing rumors about Rory and Poulter being a team together. Man, those are some scary teams. Like, Rahm and Hovland just seem unbeatable. Like, who the hell's going to beat that team? Like, they just seem so good. And then so Rory and Poulter, like, those are just 2 veterans that know how to play the Ryder Cup. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be punch, counter punch, like the whole Friday. And I listened to a podcast earlier today, and they're saying something like, whoever comes out and wins day 1 tends to win the Ryder Cup. Like, if you win the first session and the second session, you have that momentum and that leg up that is tough to make those in tournament adjustments to try to catch up a little bit. So we'll see. Like you said, I think they definitely need to come out Friday morning. I think they definitely need to come out with a bang, win these matches big. Try to put their foot to their throat and just start winning holes right off the bat and do their thing. Bryson has talked about how he's going to try to drive the first green, so maybe that'll make a statement. I don't know if he actually can do that and make eagle or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. So
yeah, I mean, the one thing about the pairings, and we're all speculating about who's going to end up playing with each other the first day. I think the important thing is, basically, when these lineups are created, they're out there. They have no visibility to either team about who's going to play. They don't know who's going to play in the afternoon session the next day. There's no idea. So those adjustments are made on the fly. So the only place we're going to know where guys are going to play is that very first session. So that's extremely important, like we mentioned, for the DraftKings side and for the prop side, because guys that play in that morning session, the only guys are going to have a chance to play in 5 straight matches.
Yep.
So, I think the big thing from a construction standpoint, when you're talking about like what Stricker needs to do, there's really 2 schools of thought. The 2 schools are, get guys with opposing skill sets. So, like you mentioned, you get a guy like Bryson DeChambeau and a guy like Scotty Scheffler, where Bryson, who's going to go out and try and overpower the course, drive every drivable par 4, hit it down there 360 yards, and a guy like Scotty Scheffler, who's a wizard with a wedge and around the greens, and in his short game, that could potentially be a good matchup.
Yeah.
The other side of that coin is to try to get guys with similar matchup or similar styles. So that way, if they're playing alternate shot, they end up playing a shot that they would typically have in their own game. So you take a guy like a Sergio Garcia and a Lee Westwood, who are both not super long, but very good off the tee. They find fairways. They're good with long irons. And in an alternate shot format, the guy who leads off and hits from a tee box is going to put the ball in a very similar situation that the other guy would end up being if he was the one that was teeing off. So figuring out how the construction of the teams are going to play out for each of the teams is really going to determine how success is going to go and which matches are going to be won. I do think this, though. I think Europe is very keenly aware that all of the pressure is on Team USA.
Yep.
Like, no one expects Europe to win. No one expects them to contend. And Europe can say, we've won 7 out of the last 9. So the US has everything to lose and basically nothing to gain, because like you said, if they go out there and they stomp a mud hole in Team Europe, they're going to go, yeah, you should. You have the best team. The course was set up perfectly for you. You should go out there and beat them by 7 points. The reality is that when you've got that much pressure, and believe me, golf and pressure, it can do crazy things to people.
Yeah.
Who knows how this team is going to react, because it is such a new team.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just, I hope that, they can come out and make a statement Friday morning. And like you said, USA has everything to lose. If they lose this Ryder Cup, I mean, it just looks so bad. And they should win. They're almost a 2-1 favorite. So it just could ruin their psyche moving forward. I hope that's not the case. But yeah, Europe, they always have this underdog mentality. And even if they think they're the better team, they're going to think that they're going to have that mentality, like, we're the underdogs. We're going to come out. We're going to make a statement. We're going to show that we belong and, are able to play with USA, and we're going to beat them. And that's what they usually tend to do. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting this weekend.
Yeah, from a DraftKings perspective, with the scoring and lineup construction, very similar to like the Olympics or like the tournament, or not the tournament, but the PGA Championship at the end of this year. You've got a super condensed field, and you're going to have ownership gravitate to a lot of guys. We talked about a few of them, guys that we expect to play all 5 sessions: Spieth, Cantlay, Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy, Paul Casey, Victor Hovland. Those guys are going to be massively owned because they are the only guys that can get all 5 sessions.
Yeah.
But, it's really the other guys that will end up making the difference in your lineup this week. Your Tony Finau's, your Shane Lowry's, the Scotty Schefflers. If you can find a guy who gets hot and plays one of those morning sessions, and all of a sudden he catches fire, and they're like, okay, this guy's thriving in this format, he's going to get shoveled into all these other sessions. And you've got to be able to build the lineup construction with this super condensed field. So trying to be massively different is probably not a great method, but trying to pick that one or those 2 guys from each one of the teams that are going to be the Thomas Peters of this version, where they end up just catching fire and coming up out of nowhere. That's really going to be the way that you win money this week. So it's a weird dynamic on DraftKings. I won't have a ton of exposure to it this week, but I'll be keenly watching who the guys are that end up playing in the morning session, and those guys will end up being in basically all of my lineups as I construct for the weekend.
Yeah, I'm not going to play too much DraftKings this week either. I'm not going to gamble too much on the Ryder Cup either. I can enjoy watching the Ryder Cup without having to have too much action. I have a couple bets out there, obviously, but I'll probably play like a couple lineups. But yeah, it's really important to know that the one thing that's different than normal lineup construction this week is that it's captain showdown this week. So you do get to pick someone that is going to be your captain of your DraftKings lineup. So basically what that means is that their salary is going to be 1.5 times what their normal salary is. So like, for example, if you play John Rahm in your captain spot, his normal salary is $9,800 and his captain salary is going to be $14,700. But in addition to that, you get also 1.5 times the points that he's going to get. So it's pretty important that I think first of all, I think you should wait until the Friday morning matches are announced on Thursday night. So before you build any lineups, and anyone that's playing Friday morning, anyone outside of that's not playing Friday morning, you should not play in your captain spot
Yeah.
whatsoever. So your captain should be someone playing Friday morning for sure. But yeah, I think the majority of your player pool is going to be those 16 guys on Friday morning, and then sprinkle in some of the other guys that aren't playing there. So, like you said, you just got to nail those guys. And I also think it's important to know that the I think that because DraftKings is an American-based company and a lot of the players are American, I think ownership kind of leans towards more towards American guys. So if you're
Yep.
trying to be a little bit more different, maybe you just got to kind of paint a picture here. If you think Europe's going to win and like 16-12 or something like that, then play some Europe lineups and that's going to make you a little bit different, I think, in the end, because when the normal players like me and Americans that are playing that are one money playing NFL or whatever, they're going to open up DraftKings to make a lineup. They're going to be like, oh yeah, DJ. They're going to skip right over Shane Lowry. They're going to skip right over Ian Poulter. They're going to go to Harris English. Like these, they're going to click these names for America, and not click on the European names. So I think if you want to try to be a little different, play your Rom or Rory or Victor in your captain slot, and then maybe put some Europeans than Americans in your lineup.
So here's a question for you. Like, let's say, in the morning you end up with, let's say we end up with a Rom and Hovland, and we end up with Rory, and then paired with Rory, we end up with a guy like Matthew Fitzpatrick or Shane Lowry. Do you move a guy like Fitzpatrick or Lowry into the captain's mode spot so that way you've got more money to allocate for the other guys? Or do you say, nah, bag it. I'm going to stay with Rom. I'm going to stay with Rory, because the likelihood that Shane Lowry or Matthew Fitzpatrick plays all 5 sessions or scores a bunch of points, right, is much lower than those other 2 guys.
It's a very interesting question. I think I think you can put someone like Fitzpatrick, like if you have that example, that scenario play out. I think you can play somebody like Fitzpatrick or Lowry in your captain slot, just because the only reason why I say that is because, first of all, that's going to open up your lineup to play pretty much whoever you want in the rest of your lineup. So you have a really good lineup beyond your captain slot. And then if, let's say, Poulter or somebody's paired with McIlroy and they go out and they wipe the floor with their opponent, there's a chance that Poulter could play with McIlroy the rest of the time. Like he could play all the next 3 sessions in team play, and then obviously they're going to all play singles. So, yeah, I definitely could say that you could do that for sure. Even if you think it's somebody that you don't think is going to play all 5 sessions, I just think having that knowledge of who's playing Friday morning and seeing who's paired up, I think it's pretty important. So we'll see when those matchups come out. Obviously on Thursday night, I'm very interested to see what happens. But that's how you should be building. That gives you the most. Like they all say in NFL, like volume is key. Like these 16 guys are the only ones that can play all 5 sessions. So volume is key here. So you got to play those guys in your lineups for sure.
Yeah, no, I like the theory, and then the other part of it is especially in the Friday and Saturday sessions, if Poulter's paired with Rory and half the holes Poulter plays like crap, it doesn't matter, because if Rory plays like he's supposed to and they win the holes, Poulter gets the same exact number of points. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. He can ride the coattails of a guy, and to your point, if they're like, hey, the chemistry's good, they're playing well, then they will continue to play well throughout all the sessions, or I should say play together throughout all the sessions. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about a guy playing like dog crap, because his partner can carry him, and if they end up winning, that's all anybody cares about, is that they win the match.
Yeah. I also think that another important thing is to, when you see the matchups on Friday morning, I don't think you should play guys in the same lineup that are playing against each other. I don't think that's a smart idea. I think you should pick guys that are who you like. Match A, like you pick one team and play those 2 guys in your lineup, and then match B, pick like another team that you think is going to win and play those guys in your lineup if the salary fits, obviously. So I think that's I don't think you should, if like Rom and Hovland are playing JT and Jordan, I don't think you should try to put like 3 of those
one guy from each team. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense, because your lineup isn't being optimal in that situation. So I think it's very tricky. It's very strategic this week. I don't really have the brain power to figure this out, to be completely honest with you. That's why I'm only going to hand build like 2 or 3 lineups this week and just kind of figure it out from there. But if you're playing DraftKings, they have some good contests. So play and see how it goes. And do you want to talk about these salaries at all, or do you just want to move on.
Yeah. I'm curious. The one question I was going to ask you is obviously the guys that nobody thinks are going to get the sessions, right? They're not going to get the time out on the course. Are
Mm.
the guys that are lower ownership? Like, is there anybody that you are just crossing off the list because you're like, that guy's not going to play anything but singles matches and maybe find one other session in one of the pairings? Anybody on either team that you're like, just cross them off because I can't see them getting maybe more than one or two attempts?
Probably the low guys, Burn Leesberger, Lee Westwood. Like I can't see them playing more than two sessions. And on the American side, I don't know. Maybe Harris English. It's tough to say. I really don't know what Steve Stricker's going to do here. I mean, the low end guys like Burned and Lee and English and Fitzpatrick, they're priced at the lowest because DraftKings is expecting them to play the least amount of sessions, so that's why they're the price the lowest. But I mean, would I be surprised if Bern Wiesberger played more than three sessions? No, I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be I don't know. I just don't see that happening. I just wouldn't be surprised if it actually happened because they could do anything. If the guy's hot, the guy's hot. But yeah, I would probably cross out those low end guys, English, Westwood, Wiesberger. But if you're going to be building lineups with these high end guys, you're going to have to squeeze a couple of those guys in there. So I just don't know. I haven't built any lineups yet, so I don't really know how it works out salary wise.
Yeah, the guys that I'm really keenly interested to see if they end up on Friday, particularly with Europe, is Coulter, Hatton, and Lowry. Like those three guys, like I fully expect Casey to be out there. Fully expect, like I said, Rory and Rom and Hovland to be out there. But it's who ends up filling those other spots.
Yeah.
Terrell Hatton has the experience. Shane Lowry is a guy who's played much, much better. But those three guys from 64 to 6,000, there is a bunch of things that you can do with your lineup if they end up playing and you slide them into your captain's mode. And if that team goes through and just starts beating the crap out of the American teams, like those guys are going to continue to play. So from a pricing perspective, I think there's a lot of value, particularly with Shane Lowry. He's probably the one guy that I think is probably grossly mispriced in this versus other guys in the field. The other guy that is, I think, from the reverse, just because of the way that he's been playing lately, is probably Tommy Fleetwood. Like I think Fleetwood's overpriced, and I think Shane Lowry is undervalued. So both guys are Europeans, but I realize why Fleetwood is the way where he's priced where he's at because of what happened 2 years ago. But I mean, the guy has just been struggling. Obviously, we talked about the struggles with Rory, but Rory's going to continue to be one of the highest priced guys. Other than that, that from the American side, the pricing for me on the American side is all okay. I get it. Finau is probably the only guy that I think has some value on the American side at 7,200 because I do think there's a very serious case where he plays 5 sessions this year.
Yeah. I agree. I think Finau is good value. I think on the European side, Sergio is good value too. I think he could play all 5 sessions. I think Brooks, I don't know. Brooks is a conundrum for me because I think he's a little hurt. So I don't think he's actually going to play that many sessions. That's why you'll see in the betting segment later. That's why I'm not too high on him. I'm kind of fading Brooks this week. But yeah, I definitely agree. Finau, I think, is good value at 7,200 pricing this week. You can even if he's one of the matches Friday morning, I think you could slide him into like a captain slot and think that he's going to play all 5 sessions. Same with Sergio, I think. But yeah, Shane Lowry, I don't know. I can't see him playing all the sessions. I just don't.
Is that because he's fat? Is that why you don't think he can make it?
Hey, from what I'm hearing, this course is a tough walk, so you got to be in shape to walk this course. I don't know how he's going to walk it. But is he a rookie?
I think so. I don't think I had him denoted as one, but I think this is his first Ryder Cup.
Yeah, this is his first Ryder Cup. So, yeah, but I mean, windy conditions. He's won an Open Championship. You never know. I mean, he could come out and play really well at this course. We've been talking about Shane Lowry all year. He's been striking the hell out of the ball all season. So, he's definitely going to be an X factor for that team.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to who the next man up is for Team Europe. Is it going to be Sergio? Is it going to be Lowry? Is it going to be Hatton or Poulter? Like, we all know who the top 4 is, but who are the next 4 guys that are going to show up and play with those guys and be the staples for this lineup? And like you, could Bernd Wiesberger be that guy? Maybe, but there's just he is such an oddball out of that group where
Yeah.
he doesn't really fit into the dynamics or narratives. But again, you never know. I mean, nobody would have said, Tommy Fleetwood and Francisco Molinari would be the stars of Team Europe 2 years ago, and they absolutely were. So could
Mhm.
Bernd Wiesberger and Ian Poulter be the team? Maybe, but it's so hard to tell. And there's so much of that partnership dynamic that guys need to be able to capitalize on, and you just never really know who's got the better chemistry until you see it out there on the course.
Yeah, and this all comes down to Steve Stricker versus Patrick Harrington. I think Harrington has a good idea of how he's going to like rest these guys and stuff like that. Like I think he knows who he wants to play all 5 sessions. I think it's a little bit more obvious for the Europeans, a little less obvious for the Americans. I'm really curious to see what Stricker does. I hope he makes the right decisions. I hope he uses the advice of his vice captains and plays the right guys. I hope he doesn't try to play like I don't know. I hope he doesn't try to play like Harris English in all 5 sessions or something like that. I hope he like picks and chooses the right guys and plays them the correct amount of sessions and even factors in rest for like an older guy maybe like DJ or something. I can't imagine DJ not playing all 5 sessions, but yeah, I think Patrick Harrington has a much easier job when it comes to picking and choosing the guys he wants because there's such a disparity between like the older guys. Like no one's going to question him if Lee Westwood doesn't play until Sunday.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to question that. But if Steve Stricker like sits like Harris English until like Saturday afternoon, they're gonna be like, and he comes out and plays wonderfully Saturday afternoon, and the USA is losing. They're gonna be like, why the hell did he not play Harris English like before? Like if he's playing that well, so a little bit more decision making, I think, for Steve Stricker and the vice captains for America than there is for the Europeans. But yeah, I think another key factor for Europe this week is going to be Matt Fitzpatrick. I think if he can make putts, and I don't think he may play Friday morning. I'm not sure, but if he does, if he's not playing Friday morning, if he comes out and plays like Friday afternoon, this is a long course for Matt Fitzpatrick, and we've seen him play well at long courses before. So if he comes out and he hasn't been playing well this season, so if he comes out and has that magical putter that he has at times, pair him up with somebody like Ian Poulter, like team putting right there. That'd be pretty dynamic, I think.
Yeah, and that speaks to the skill set stack, right? Like taking two guys who have similar games, so
Yeah.
regardless of who the guy is that's hitting the ball, you end up in a very similar position, right? So there's a lot to be. I think the key thing is something we've said over and over again is wait until the teams come out on Thursday before you start doing lineup constructions.
Yeah.
Don't jump into building lineups and you end up with these great lineups where you're like, oh man, I got JT, I got Spieth, I got this guy. And it's like, guess what? Only half of your guys are going to end up playing more than 2 sessions.
Yeah.
So it's super important to watch and see what happens. Hold out to Thursday night, watch what the pairings are for Friday, and then do your construction. On the betting side of things, I think you can take a similar role, but you don't have to if you see value on the board.
Yeah.
So for me this week, like on the betting card, I'm really heavy in the props. I don't have a ton going on in the Europe versus US team dynamic. I did, however, bet Team Europe at plus 200. I just, again, like I do with everything, I try to take all the heartstrings and analytics and everything and just say, is there value? And Team Europe at plus 200, to me, there's value with that. The Americans, you're having to bet at, negative 185, negative 200. So to get 2-to-1 odds on Europe, hey, I'll take those odds. They should get smoked, and the odds are reflective of what should happen. But I've also seen what has happened the last 6-8 years, and I think that that says a lot about why this thing's not 2.5-to-1 or 3-to-1 when on paper it probably should be that high.
Yeah.
Additionally to that, like my prop bets this week, my top overall getter, I love Cantlay and X. My top US guy, again, I went back to X, and then I like the number on Finau. If Finau's a guy I think is going to play at least 3 to 4 sessions. He flourished in Europe, so I think he's going to flourish here in these in the match play and in the singles dynamics. My top Euro, I like Sergio. I think, to your point, you mentioned he's got a really good shot at playing all 5 sessions this year. He's kind of that next man up behind Hovland and Casey. So I like Sergio for top points getter. Oh, coincidentally, he's the top all-time points getter for Team Europe in the history of Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm leveraging that.
I think I saw a stat that over the last like I don't know, however many Ryder Cups. I think he's only missed like one session in the last like 2 decades. Like I think he's played
Yep.
like every session. So he's definitely, and this course suits him well. I mean, he is long off the tee. He's accurate off the tee. He just needs to close his eyes and make a couple putts this week.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is the guy's been playing in Ryder Cup since he was 19 years old, youngest ever Ryder Cupper. So he's been playing a long time. To your point, him and Casey and Hovland have
Four different decades now for Sergio.
Yeah, they also have that US PGA style of golf, right? That long off the tee, straight, good with long irons, can't putt worth a shit, but they can stripe the ball with a driver and an iron. So I like Sergio there. And then top rookie, I just like the number on Lowry. There's been a lot of people that have said, hey, you could see a Lowry Rory stack, and if they play well, that could permeate throughout. So I took a flyer on Lowry on top rookie. Realistically, I think Hovland's probably the best pick there because he's a lock to play in all 5 sessions. Yep. But I like the number on Lowry, so I took the plus 750.
Yep. My betting card, I took the opposite of that. I took the top Euro rookie. I took the Hovland there at minus 125. I think that's just the volume thing. I think, like you said, yep. I think Hovland is a lock to play all 5 sessions. So I bet on my betting card, I bet Hovland is top Euro rookie. I think it's just between him and Lowry and Wiesberger. So I just took Hovland just because I think he's going to play the most sessions. So minus 125. My top overall points getters, I bet X at plus 1,200, Bryson at plus 1,600, Finau at plus 2,500, just because I think those are pretty good values. I think Bryson and Finau and X have a chance to play all 5 sessions. And then for the Euro side, I took a stab at Poulter. I think, honestly, the best bet is probably Rahm or Rory or somebody like that. But their numbers are just way too low for me. I'd just rather take a little sprinkler or someone like Poulter, who we've seen dominate at Ryder Cups before. We've seen him get a hot putter and just be able to go out and win 4 points for Europe if need be. I think to get top overall points, you got to get 4 points, like as an outright. I think 3.5 is not going to be enough to like win outright for a top points getter. So I just take a sprinkle on Poulter there. And then for me, my exotics, my favorite bet of the whole Ryder Cup is going to be USA to win day 3, which is Sunday singles competitions, just because I think the number there is pretty good, like minus 140, where I think USA is probably going to be favored in like 9-10 of the matches, like straight up matches. Like maybe Rahm and Rory are going to be favored in their matches, maybe Hovland potentially, but like the other like 9 matches, I think USA is going to be favored. So getting that overall number of them winning day 3 singles at minus 140, I think is pretty good value. So I took that bet. The next bet I took was Bryson. I found this fun bet on Bovada. Bryson over Brooks, more points, minus 140 also. I just took that because I don't think Brooks is going to play that much just because of his wrist. So I think Bryson is going to play more than him. So just putting my numbers in favor there, I think Bryson's a fun little bet there. And then I'm going to just go ahead and just, I'm not going to not bet USA, and I just was trying to figure out what I wanted to do to just bring the number down a little bit. So I just parlayed it with my Ravens to beat the Lions over the weekend. So I think the Ravens are going to win the game. So I just brought the number basically down to even money for USA to win the Ryder Cup. So both of those two things hit, even money. That's my last parlay. And then one other bet that I did add today that I forgot to tell you about, Tony, I found it. And I just think it's free money. It's Rory to outscore Shane Lowry as top Irishman at minus 170. I saw that. I put a little bit on it. I just think Rory is going to play more than Shane Lowry. And I think if they get paired up together, that'd be cool. But top Irishman, Rory, minus 170 to get more points than Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I did add 2 more as well, too, and I mentioned it to you. So kind of the more exotic wins is to try and pick, like, if you think the U.S. is going to win dominantly, like you're so sure the U.S. is going to win, that a lot of books are offering, like, okay, well, are they going to win from 1-3 or by 4 or 6?
Like a spread, like an actual spread.
Yeah, like an actual spread. So I took the U.S. to win by 1-3 points at plus 250, and then I took the U.S. also to win by 4 to 6 points at plus 350. So, I didn't like the negative number, kind of like you did with the money line with the Ravens, is to give yourself a little bit of an odds booster. So at least you're getting even money on your bet.
Yeah.
So I like both of those bets. I do think the U.S. should wipe the floor with Europe, but my straight up bet, I did take Europe because at 2-1, like I said, there's just value in that number to me.
Yeah, definitely good value, I think. And I mean, me just being a homer, I'm obviously gonna be cheering for the Ravens this weekend. I'm gonna be cheering for USA, so I just put them together and got even money for the bet. So we'll see.
Yeah. My big thing is I hope it's competitive enough where Sunday has some drama going in, where it's
Yeah,
like, hey, I mean, obviously there's 12 matches, so there's a lot of points that can be won on Sunday, but I love when there's drama going into Sunday at the Ryder Cup. And it's not going to be surprising. Instead of watching an NFL game, I might be sitting here going crazy for Ryder Cup, watching guys, sink 30-foot putts to win matches or have matches with guys.
yeah. It kind of sucks for me on Sunday. My wife bought, not knowing that Sunday was Ryder Cup, she bought tickets to Halloween Spectacular at Disneyland on Sunday. But it's only in the evening, so we're going at I think 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. I'm not really sure what the timing is like on Sunday, but either way, I'll be watching it on my phone while I'm at
See,
Disneyland.
all the more reason you got to talk to Mike. That's why I boycott Halloween. So I have to do any of that garbage with my kids. I just
I
nope,
know she wanted to do this Halloween Spectacular at Disneyland, and I think she just bought tickets for this Sunday because she asked me what time the Ravens game was. I was like, they play it Sunday morning at 10:00. Okay, she was like, okay, I'll buy it for Sunday evening. I was like, oh shit, I just realized that that's the Ryder Cup, and she's like, well, you're gonna have to watch it on your phone while we're at Disneyland. I'm like, okay.
Well, hopefully, what we end up having is the U.S. is up by so much that it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter. It's just gas on the fire at the end of
Yeah,
the day. So,
true.
but
All right,
well, dude, I think that's pretty much going to do it for
yeah,
us. I mean, I'm excited for it, dude. I think
I'm pumped.
I think there's so many cool storylines, and I hope I really my big thing is I'm really rooting for Bryson. Like I want to see him go out there and play great, dominate the course, and get this feeling like he's carrying the team on his back all the way across the finish line. Because I do think he's a guy that's had a bunch of shit piled on him this year, and I would love to see him just play well and be that guy for this team this year.
I would too. The only thing that like you said, like you mentioned earlier, Patrick Reed has come out and been Captain America, but he still hasn't been able to erase that stink off of him as being such a villain. And he does bring it on himself by cheating and doing all this other bullshit. But I hope that I hope Bryson can come out and like you said, carry USA on his shoulders, be be the soul of this team and be it's gonna be a different environment for Bryson this week because he's gonna be the crowd is gonna be cheering for him instead of against him for once.
Yep.
So I hope that he can come out, do that, and then really show that he has that American spirit, and then maybe it will erase that stink off of him, and maybe he'll potentially become a kind of a hero for America. Who knows?
At the very least, it'll be like if you're a Red Sox and a Yankees fan, and it's like, hey, one time a year when the guy's on the American League All-Star team,
Yeah.
I want him to do well and hit bombs and do all those things. So at the very least, if Bryson can do that, he gets to be the guy that rights the ship for Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
To your point, who knows if all the other things that are going on surface back when the regular season starts, but at least for a short period of time, I want him to be that guy. I want him to be that hero. I'd love to see him kind of get fired up and yell and scream and have the crowd behind him. And I want that for him. I truly, truly do.
Yeah. Bryson, go win 5 points and win me my 16-1 bet, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us, Rick.
Right.
Appreciate it, man. We'll be back again next week doing another show for the PGA Golf Show. You and Chris have a show coming up tomorrow night. I think you guys have a fantasy show recapping the week and talking about some sleepers and picks for this week.
Big Ravens win from this past week. Big Ravens win from this past week.
I know. You got what a great game, by the way.
Yeah, that was an awesome game.
Like I text you, they are not good. The Ravens are not a good team, but Lamar Jackson is just unbelievable when he plays like he did. He can just put a team on his back and just win the game.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that tomorrow with Chris. And we'll just like last week, we'll recap 10 games and talk about fantasy stuff. So, look forward to that show tomorrow and very much looking forward to a fun-filled weekend full of Ryder Cup and football and all that good stuff. I don't even know what golf tournament's next week, probably some shit tournament, but we'll be here to cover it.
Yeah, you bet your ass I'll be betting on it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. All right.
All right, man. Well, good luck to you. I hope Team USA pulls it off. And for all you guys out there, don't forget, comment, like, and subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. And we will see you again here next week for another PGA Golf Show. Thanks.
Hey, guys.